Hi, I'm Sienna Rappaport. So clearly you always had this story of this like act of heroism that your parents did, but what pushed you to finally make this movie, Operation Wedding?
Hi. I always thought there were a lot of films about my parents because when I was growing up, I saw a lot of people with cameras coming and filming them. And then I did a research and I found out that there are only very short films, like 5 or 8 minutes about the story. And then the only really long film about the story was the Russian film that you saw a little bit from it in the film. And they call my parents terrorists, and they say that they were dressed like bride and groom to hijack a plane, which of course never happened. So I understood that it's on my shoulders, and I'm the only one who can tell the story so that you can see it. By the way, I'm very happy to show it for the first time for a teen crowd. So I'm hoping you enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to hear what you thought about it.
What was it like when you first learned about the whole story?
The first time I was 5 year old, I was staying at a friend's place and I saw my mother on television, and I heard her say, "Yes, we hijacked the plane," and the newscaster said, "You're a hero" and stuff like that. And this is the first time I learned about it when I was 5. And I didn't understood what it means, but I just felt very proud that my mother was on TV. And then when I was in the first grade in school, the teachers would come up, would tell me, "Stand up and tell everybody your parents' story." But I was only 6 and 7, so I couldn't really tell the story, but I do now. And when I was a kid, I didn't understand much. I just knew that they are heroes, but then when I grew up and I learned more about the story, actually, I didn't realize how less I knew until I started working on this film. And then I really learned a lot about it.
So what was one thing that you really took away as a filmmaker after producing this?
The one thing I took from as a filmmaker, I'm trying to think if it's look, we had to choose which story to tell, because it's a big story and we had to simplify it, because we can't tell you can't tell like a lot of stories in one story. So the most difficult part in the documentary was to choose which story to tell, and it was a good problem because sometimes you don't have any story. When you do a documentary, it doesn't matter how much you plan in advance. I planned a lot in advance how the film would be like, and even before we went filming, I thought I knew what it would be like, but nothing went out like I planned. There is a saying that my producer say. He says, in a fiction film, the scriptwriter is God because he's creating the world, but in a documentary, God is the scriptwriter. You never know what's going to happen. You just have to be in a documentary prepared and film all the time. And then when you go to editing, now you have to choose which story you're going to tell. And we could have told just the story of the hijacking, of the planning and how they got arrested, but we chose to tell more the humane story. And we decided that the story would be about the power of an individual to change the world. And also that there is no ideology that's worth chopping off heads for. So this is the main story, and we focused on that. And as a filmmaker, at first I thought it would take me a year to finish this film. It's not a problem, right? You go, you interview people, you do editing, that's it. But it took me 4 years, and I finished 6 months ago. And now I'm still working all the time about distributing. So if you want to make a film, just make sure that you realize it's not going to be like you thought, and it's going to take longer.
Well, I'm Noah, and so I was wondering, for this documentary, you have to interview a wide range of people who were involved with this story, including some members of KGB. Now, I was wondering if you actually met them in person, and what was it like interviewing these people who basically branded your parents as criminals and tried to put them in jail for a very long time?
One of the most important things for me when I started filming was to interview a KGB, because I wanted to understand their point of view. I mean, what is so wrong with people going out of the country? I mean, why is it a crime? How can they explain it? And everybody thought I have no chance of interviewing KGB men, because it's too hard to reach. And also in Russia, even today, people die earlier. And most of the KGB men should have been in their 80s or something like that, and they're not alive. But I did found a former KGB, the former KGB general, Oleg Kalugin, that you saw in the film, and he lives in Maryland, because after he was in KGB, he became a dissident, he became against the regime, and he was exiled to America. And he actually is one of the owners of the Spy Museum in Washington. And but still, the interview with him was very interesting, because he still thought my parents were criminals because they took the plane, and completely ignored the fact that if they were allowed to leave, if they would have given exit visa, and then they wouldn't have taken the plane. They didn't take people with them. They just wanted to go home to Israel. This is where they felt their home is. They were trapped in the Soviet Union, and because they are Jews as well, people say, we hate you. Hitler should have killed you all, and they didn't get accepted to. Well, my parents were in universities, but lots of other people weren't accepted to universities because they were Jewish, and then. And on the other hand, they're not allowed to leave. So I tried to understand the KGB point of view. So I was and then I found another interview, not that I did it, from 2004, from the KGB Philip Bubkov, and he basically, what I understood from them, that they say, if we give people permission to leave the country, maybe there will be spies against the country. I don't know if they can hear how stupid their answer is. I think, in my opinion, it was a country that everybody's job were government jobs, and maybe because if they don't let the people leave, maybe the people are like their slaves in a sort of way, because you have to stay in a government job, and the payment is government job. But if you ask for exit visa, you betrayal the country. Can you imagine if you just want to leave United States, just to travel even, you consider as a betrayal and you won't get a job even. There is no sense in KGB when you try to understand their reason. There is no sense. They're just crazy, brainwashed. It's very easy to brainwash people into thinking they are right. You just use a few words like they're criminals, they're terrorists, we want peace, everything is good, and then they believe themselves.
What was it like going through your parents with this story? So you did your research and then you went through your research with them. So how was it like going through the story that your parents experienced and experiencing it with them?
I think I cried every day in the past 4 years. Every time I get a new archives, and it's just very emotional, because I always picture myself, what would I do if I were them? Would I join them to the group to hijack the plane? Would I be brave on trial and not ask for mercy and just say, I'm not sorry about what I did? Would I be able to stay strong in prison? And so in the past 4 years, I was living in the past of my parents. and it has been very emotional for me, and also editing of the film. But for me, this is the way to know that something that I do is working. If I feel very emotional about it, I cry all the time, then I'm guessing the audience would feel the same way as I do. And but I was crying a lot, but at the same time I felt happy because I'm doing my mission, my life mission, and I'm fulfilling it. So I felt happy and sad at the same time.
What was it like for you or your mom to go back to Russia?
Okay. You know, she didn't want to go. I didn't want to go too much. But my father, for example, he didn't agree to go at all. And my mother, she didn't want to go. She was never back in the Soviet Union, not in Russia anyway. And I was never there before as well, because and I would never go unless we were filming. I was very afraid. I'm putting too much pressure on her. My mother, she's not so young. Now she's 72. And I didn't want, in the name of art, to hurt my mother or anyone. But my mother and I, it's either she breaks down or I break down. One of us is breaking down and one of us is strong. As you saw in the film, it's always changing. And except from the times that we were filming, we were just going to a restaurant and having fun, basically. But when we were filming, we went to places that were hurting for her. And my mother, she never forget. It's like time didn't pass. She feels the same way about it all the time. And she's a very emotional person. And it was an amazing experience. I wish my father could have joined, and I think that was like the strongest scenes in the film, and I understood better because I didn't know, I couldn't imagine the prison that you saw. I couldn't imagine that it was that difficult. I thought that maybe they have like a yard that they can exercise with other people, or places where they all eat dinner, but it was just torture place. And I was shocked because when my mother, she went to the prison, she was 25. I'm 37, and so she was like much younger than me when she went into prison, and she thought she would be there for 10 years. We were there for 2 hours. It felt like years for me, and I couldn't wait to get out. It was like a ghost house. It was very scary, seriously scary. I felt like ghosts of the past, of prisoners that are following us, you know. I'm glad it's over, and now it's just a scene.
Do we have another question? One more question? All right, last question.
Hi, how much prior knowledge of what happened to your parents did you have before you made the film?
Not a lot, to be honest. I didn't have a lot of prior knowledge before I made the film. I knew a very general, maybe like a Wikipedia kind of information about it. And I started researching in 2009. So that's like 8 years ago. And I kept finding out new things. And actually, I still find out new things even today. But now even my father says I'm the most expert about this story. It's a very complicated story. It can be very confusing, but I in the film I try to make it not confusing, and I hope I succeed. I really learned a lot about when I did the research. For example, about the story about Golda Meir and Franco. I didn't know about it before, and a lot of other things. You know, one thing was very interesting that I found out during the filming. It's not in the film, but I'm now working on a script for a fiction film, and it will be in the fiction film, but it's not in the documentary. I didn't realize when they were released, the people were released from prison, it's not, they were not given money or clothes. For example, my mother, she was released on a Friday night. She was sent to the KGB in Leningrad, And then they just made her sign something. They gave her a train ticket to Moscow because this is where she could get the exit visa. She had to travel 8 hours to get the exit visa. But she was in the Leningrad street on Friday night wearing a prisoner dress, walking in the streets in a prisoner dress, no money, nobody's knowing, no one knows she's free, not her parent, not her father, not Israel, no one knows about it. And she's just wandering in the streets. And she finally arrived to one of her friend's house who was not in prison and was not in Israel by then. And he opens the door and he sees Silva Zalmanson in a prisoner dress. And so this is like a very strange story. You know, I thought, can you imagine being free from prison but no one knows about it and you just have to walk in the streets? Luckily it was summer at least. So this is one thing I found out, that I because before my mother would say, and then I was free. She just said like, yes, I was free. And she never told me. And I told her, how can you not tell me that when you got free you weren't even given money or a phone call? And she said she was so happy to be free, she didn't even think about it. It was just like normal for her. And they didn't expect anything from the KGB. There were no expectation for, no normal conditions, not even for prisoners.
Anat, thank you so much for first the movie and also this Skype question and answer, and we look forward to seeing the next movie. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.